Thank you, Secretary LaHood, for joining us today as we examine the President's budget and his transportation funding request. First, I just would repeat that your family are in our prayers, and we intend to be as helpful as we possibly can in that situation. As you know, America is faced with a growing fiscal crisis. We're borrowing 40 cents of every dollar we spend. We're facing our fourth straight deficit in this country, annual deficit in excess of $1 trillion. We've never had this kind of debt path before. All across the country, families are tightening their belts. Cities and counties and states are doing that. The federal government has got to do the same. Our severe fiscal challenges present an opportunity to make government leaner, more productive, and less expensive, to achieve more efficiently and effectively. As the Chairman said, we have to set priorities. Priorities mean making choices. I'm prepared to support and choose transportation as a high priority. Unlike so much of what Washington does with taxpayers' money, good roads are tangible, long-term, quality of life improving matters that make the nation more productive, not just for 1 year, 2 years, but for decades. It does that. It creates American jobs, and virtually all the matters that go into those highways are American produced. And it can't be produced in a foreign country. It's here. So I think it's a way to create jobs and permanent improvements in productivity. Now, the tragedy is that there was a great opportunity, as you alluded to, Mr. Chairman, to advance our highway system as part of the President's stimulus package. Instead, nearly $1 trillion of borrowed money was frittered away on failed proposals that succeeded only in sinking our nation deeper in debt. I do not believe it made a significant core improvement in our economy, although you and I would disagree, and good people can disagree on that. Certainly more people are out of work today than when that bill passed. But the President said his stimulus would be used to repair our nation's crumbling infrastructure. It was sold on that basis. Repeatedly, we were given stories that our infrastructure is crumbling. At the last minute, I noticed how little of that money was actually going to infrastructure. It went to state aid, and it went to social programs. It went to all kinds of things. Here in the Los Angeles Times, just a few days ago, taxpayer money used to maintain $1 million yacht. The yacht of the city, over $500,000 went to that. Now, we've had those kind of stories time and again, but too little of it went to roads and bridges and crumbling infrastructure. Now the President's budget will further undermine America's future by using foreign loans for costly and unnecessary projects in this infrastructure. The President's budget includes another $47 billion for high-speed rail, which Congress has already declined to fund. We can't justify a massive nationwide high-speed rail system at this time. There may be specific projects that are justified in special areas, but not nationwide, not the kind of program that would utilize $47 billion. And it lumps Amtrak now into the Highway Trust Fund, where it would further destabilize a fund that's already been weakened through a lot of gimmicks and difficulties we're having here in making it funded. The President's highway reauthorization proposal increases spending $231 billion above incoming revenues. That's a lot, $231 billion above the revenues we've been operating under for the trust fund. Last year, the President proposed to pay for a similar increase in transportation spending with this famous not gas tax, the tax that somebody was supposed to pass, but it wouldn't be a gas tax because people might not like that. And, of course, no such tax was passed of any kind to fund the highway. CBO scored it to bring in $0, and they were correct. It brought in $0. This mystery tax. This year, the President offset the cost of this new spending program through imaginary money that would be obtained from long-planned reductions in our military operations abroad. Now, I think we should talk about that. There is no dedicated source of funding for the war. The war was funded with borrowed money. We talked about it. We debated it. Some people said there should be a tax to pay for the war, but no tax was raised to pay for the war. It was borrowed money. And so when the war comes down, we simply don't have to borrow as much. So I was taken aback at the State of the Union when the President said we're going to use half of the war savings to fund infrastructure. There is no money there. It just means we're going to borrow, continue to borrow half as much as we were borrowing before, if you assume his assumption is right. This is the kind of gimmick that has put America in this fix. We know there's no money there. We know what you're saying is when you say we're going to spend OCO money, war money, we know you mean you're going to borrow the money for the road program. We need the road program on a sound financial basis, not on borrowed money. We've got to reduce that tendency to borrow money. Ultimately, as we have established, the President's budget is a big gimmick. It's not going to save $4 trillion. It's just not reducing our deficit $4 trillion, but it does raise taxes by almost $2 trillion. And to my knowledge, none of the $2 trillion in new taxes, $1.9 trillion, is spent on roads. So if it's a priority, why don't we use some of the new tax revenue at least for roads? In truth, if we raise taxes, they should be used for reducing our deficit, not for new spending. So if we are to strengthen America, we need to create growth, productivity in America, create American jobs. We have to grow the economy fundamentally and not grow the government. We have to prioritize and control federal spending and create an environment where hardworking taxpayers can thrive in their own private sector jobs and where their livelihoods come from. A smart road program, however, can be an asset to that. I think it can help the economy grow and create some jobs, real jobs in the short term. So I look forward to discussing this matter. I'm just deeply disappointed, Mr. Chairman, in the bill that's moving today. I think there's some gimmicks in it. Finance Committee, Senator Baucus, I supported the bill in committee. It's on the floor today. We were promised that there would be legitimate pay-fors, and this bill would be on a sound basis. I'm afraid that's not entirely accurate. And we're looking to get $6 or $12 billion. That's what the shortfall is to make the fundamental program sound. And now we waltz in and we're just going to borrow another $250 out of thin air to spend on infrastructure without any source of income. And now we're also talking about, what, $250 or $300 borrowed for this tax holiday, which is really don't pay your pension, Social Security pension, and the government, in effect, gives a person making $300,000 a $2,000 check. And by the way, we don't have to pay for that either. Not in the short term, not in the long term. So I'm really worried that our people haven't gotten the message that this world is dangerous. Our financial world is dangerous. The chairman has served on the debt commission, came back a little worried, were you not? And I still think our Congress thinks business as usual here. We just borrow for new programs and new programs when cities, counties, and states are acting differently.